Hello, welcome guys to our second roles 101 lesson. Today I'll be covering support with you guys, and to give a short summary about what this whole thing is about is that basically GGWP like us we are like a group of players who are putting in are trying really hard to come up with events and try to rebuild our local Overwatch community, local and regional Overwatch community. So Rose 101 is actually a program that we have to be able to reach out to more of the maybe the casual or the lower ranked players, to share with them information or knowledge that some of them might not know and might not have the capabilities to access. So Rose 101 is as a three, 4 part series whereby we'll go through the different roles of Overwatch. We just did our tank session last month with Kafa and Akame, and today I'll be covering the support role. So first off, welcome to Roles 101 Masterclass, on the support role. So basically today the things I'll be covering with you guys would be, understanding, what is support, and also what builds around the support role. What are your job scopes, what do you do, and maybe some even like more details in regarding the heroes themselves and how the support heroes actually interact with each other and also with other people, of your team. Alright, so a little bit about myself. I think you can't see my face there. I think it's a bit blocked, but it's fine. You got this. Okay, so my name is Ayako. I've been playing Overwatch for 5 years now, so that's like the whole duration of the game lifespan. Because I actually started from the very first like Singapore LAN tournament. All right, Me Machine, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. So, like, if you guys know, or if you guys would want to know, you guys can just go on YouTube and you guys can search Hanamura Maywall and you pretty much know, what I'm talking about. So that was the first tournament I played. I've been playing competitive ever since for 5 years, and my main role now is actually main support, but I've actually dabbled in a lot of, okay, I won't say a lot of other roles, but I've dabbled in flex support as well. I've played flex support for I think 2 years, as when Ana first came out. So I've played flex support. Recently I've been playing a lot more main support, I think after 2019, I think. And yeah, my signature heroes are mostly, Mercy and Brig. And if you want to check out my Wikipedia, nothing fancy, the link is there. And some of the achievements I have is like, I've played in Contenders Pacific. I won't say exactly Contenders Australia because I was on bench, but I also played the so-called replacement contenders Overwatch Ace in 2020. So yeah, so that's some things about me. Moving on. So today we'll be talking about what is support. How does one support? Sounds easy. It's not easy. And then you go on to understanding, what each support does. What's a main support, what's a flex support, and also what are the pros and cons of playing the support role. Like some people might want to hop onto support as a DPS. Some tank players might want to try out support. This will let you know like what to expect from the role. Okay, so what is support? All right, support is basically a role where you provide some form of assistance to your teammates, mostly in the manners of healing, logically speaking, healing, armor, and even damage boost for some heroes. And basically your key role in the whole Overwatch game is that you're supposed to assist your team with your abilities, with your utility kits, in order to win team fights and then win the game. So it sounds very easy, but the thing about support is that because of all these components, all these factors into support, it's a really, I would say, it's easy role to get in, but it's also a pretty complicated role if you want to really play it to your best potential. So yeah. Alright, so how does one support? Alright, so every support is unique. You know, you can compare Lucio and Mercy. You can compare, let's say, Lucio and Moira. You know, Brig and Zen. Every support has a really unique kit, which brings about special utility for different scenarios, different maps. I'm pretty sure some of you have heard, let's say for example, Lijiang Tower. Some people will prefer to play Lucio on Gardens. Let's say on longer maps, some people will play Zen, but some people will play Ana, something like that. So every support is very unique. There isn't a support that's exactly the same in in terms of their kits and utilities. And okay, so some supports share similar actions. For example, Lucia and Mercy, they both heal. Pretty much every support heals. All right, but you have some supports that have CCs, for example, displacement CCs, such as Brig's Whip Shot, Lucia's Boop. They have mobilities such as Mercy's, Guardian Angel, Lucia's Speed Boost, damage buff and stuff. So basically, being able to play support, you have to be able to learn and use your kit effectively and adapt to different situations, different scenarios whenever you're playing the game. So the three things about support is that you have to stay alive, like mentioned above here. All right, the three key things that I'll talk about today is staying alive, managing your ability, managing your cooldowns, as some of you might know it for, and also one very important thing, positioning as a support player, which I'll go on to talk about later on in the slides. So for our first part, I'll be talking more about the main support role. So some of you might have some, already some understanding about what a main support is. Oh, it's basically Lucio or Mercy or supports that heal the most, or supports that don't need aim, as many people would call it. So I'll be talking about more of this. So what's a main support? All right, main support is usually, some people might know it as the pocket healer or dedicated peeler. Okay, so peeling is a term that we actually covered in the tank masterclass. So TLDR, peeling, is basically deterring your enemies, your opponents from certain heroes in your team with your kit. So you're basically stopping the opponent team from approaching, flanking and whatnot. So that's called peeling. And then as a main support, you provide direct assistance to any teammate. Okay, be it healing, damage boost, be it armor pack and whatnot. And also as the main support, usually you act as the enemy scouter or the shot caller in your team, because when it comes down to main support kits, main supports are usually more better in the mobility faction of your utility, and then you're usually almost never in the fight. You're usually just there, being there, like some people would say, being alive. So usually you'll be the ones calling out stuff, who's where, what's not, who to focus on, especially with heroes with stunts, heroes with mobility boost, like for example Lucio. You'll be able to call the shots, direct focus on a specific enemy, and with your mobility as well, you'll be able to pinpoint certain enemies' locations without being or putting yourself into direct danger. Alright, and so basically keeping up with the team and providing your assistance, to your DPS, to your tanks, and also most importantly to your other support. What does direct assistance, as a main support mean? So basically, direct assistance basically roughly means making your teammate's job easier. That's what the word support is. You're supposed to be there helping your teammates do what needs to be done. For example, if your tank needs to make space, make sure they're full health. If your DPS is taking off angles, getting high ground, you make sure that you keep them well and healthy before them to take the angles and stuff. So technically, you're kind of like a healing battery, healing pocket, for certain heroes. Let's say Brig, Mercy, and even Baptiste to a certain extent. You're the ones dealing out the specific target heals at times. Second pointer, peeling when your teammate is in trouble. This is really important as a main support that not many people actually know. So what is peeling? Peeling, like I mentioned before, peeling is where you use your utility to deter the enemy team, from getting to their objectives. Let's say if they want to take high ground, let's say they want to kill your other support, let's say they want to focus your DPS in the background and stuff like that. So basically, your job as the main support is that you have to make sure that doesn't happen. To your best ability, of course. It's no guarantees, but yeah, you have to peel when your teammate is in trouble with your kit, and also you're there to enable your teammates' abilities with your utility as well. For example, let's say if Lucio speed boost, if your Reaper has ult, or if your Genji has blade, as break. Let's say if your team wants to push in to fight and whatnot, you're there to enable your teammates, to be able to use their abilities to more effectively. So for example, you can speed boost the Genji, speed boost the Reaper, you can rally in as, maybe your Winston jumps in or your Ryan goes in, whatnot, etc, etc. And also marking the right enemy target. So one quick example about marking. Okay, marking and peeling is kind of the same, same meaning when it comes down to, in-game context, but peeling is important, but knowing who to peel is also really, really important, because if you were to, let's say, use your cooldowns on someone that does not need the cooldowns to be used on them, then the game might turn in a different direction. So you have to make sure that you are marking or peeling the right person from the enemy team. Juryoung, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. So I'm gonna give a quick example. So let's say if your enemy team is playing Ball and Tracer, for example, as a Brig or as a Lucio, you have to peel for your other support. Let's say Ana is on your team. You have to be able to protect your other healer. So when it comes down to marking the right enemy target, if you were to use the wrong abilities on the wrong heroes, let's say if you use on the Tracer instead of the Ball, or use the Ball instead of Tracer, it's all situational. But by marking the right enemy target in certain scenarios will help you a lot, rather than just throwing out your abilities, which I will talk about afterwards. Talking about ability usage and cooldowns and stuff. So yeah, moving on. So as I mentioned just now, previously in the few slides before this, as a main support, let's say if you're in a team environment or even in a ranked environment, if you're really sweaty and stuff, so being able to scout and call as a main support is really, really important. You're kind of like the eagles of the arena, as you would say. So whenever you guys are in a team fight, okay, like for example, if you're mid an action while not being in the action, alright, you'll have the clearest view of what's going on everywhere. Alright, because like for example, let's say the main tank's in front, they're just looking at the enemy team from the front. They might be flankers at the back that they might not know. Your DPSs might be taking off angles, so they might have blind spots and stuff. You as the main support, usually you'll be able to see everything because you're at the back. You're technically never in the heat of the fight, so you'll be able to see, the whole battleground really clearly, and therefore you're able to feed, as much information as you can to your own team. Information can differ from enemy abilities, ultimates, whether they have used it or not. Like some people, they'll call, they have Grav, I'm going to save Trance, I'm going to save B and stuff like that. These are some of the common calls that people usually will make. Okay, enemy health left, enemy shield left, not as much as a priority, because usually these things will be called out by people who are engaging in the fight, like for example Winston and Tracer. But it helps a lot as well if, for example, let's say you were to call like a Tracer low behind, or someone's flanking, they have no shield and whatnot. Really important as well. Enemy shield left, some people might know, like for example, if the enemy Zarya has no bubble, you push, something like that. So if you're as a Lucio, as a main healer, if you see that happen, you can call it out to your team, get a speed boost and go in. Enemy positioning, like I mentioned before, like heroes like Tracers, heroes like I won't say Reaper, maybe Genji, Sombra and stuff like that. You can tell them, Tracers behind, Tracers in the alley, Tracers in the room, Sombra translocator maybe here. If you see it, you never know. So like a lot of this kind of information, being able to feed that to your team allows your teammates to be able to, judge what to do next. And also it'll be clearer, it'll be easier for them to position. So for example, if they know Tracers on the right, the other support or maybe your DPS can move to the left. or if they want to contest the Tracer, they can move to the right and stuff like that, whatnot, etc. So basically, as a main support, you have to be the talkative one, I guess, but feeding crucial information, not flooding information. That's a whole different thing altogether. So yeah, as a main support, you always have to be there. You have to always talk as much as you can, feed your team information, things that they might not see, and with like say for example you have stuns or speed boosts and whatnot, use this information to like call out to your team, let's push and whatnot. So this usually will be able to turn the tide of the fight in most games. Like I mentioned before regarding cooldowns, okay, as a main support, or in fact as a support player in general, you have to be in the right place at the right time with the right ability on the right target. Okay, so it's not just haha I'm heal, you full health, let's go. It's not as simple as many people would think. So as a support player, or as a main support player, especially when you're the support that usually does the peeling for your teammates, like I have an example over here, we're talking about Brigitte, but I'll talk in general more like before that. So like when you're peeling for your team, when you have the crucial movement, crucial utilities to keep your teammates alive, your positioning and who you use your cooldowns on is really, really important, because you're not the only support on your team. You see, I mean, you're not the only support in the game. They would have their own support, they will have their own callings, and if they were to see you use random stuff out of nowhere, you're pretty much saying, hey guys, I'm free, kill me, I have nothing left. That's why you see some people, or some tanks in fact, they will sometimes say, I'm gonna jump the brig, I'm gonna get stunned, go in after me, stuff like that. So knowing what to use in different scenarios would be able to help you improve as a main support player, or support player in general. Okay, so one example here is Brigitte. Her skills consist of whip shot, which is her displacement. She has shield bash, which is a stun. She has a shield of her own, and also her repair pack, which is her armor pack, like what people usually call it, and her ultimate, rally, one of the most broken ultimates in the game. Alright, so some of the actions you can do as Brig, would be, stunning crucial enemies with shield bash. So for example, let's say the ball has mines probably coming up, or the Winston is jumping up to, first engage, or ball is rolling past your team from the back, stunning the crucial enemies, preventing them from setting up is one of the things that Brig should do. Whipping away enemy threats from your team. If you see a Winston jumping in, you see a Tracer in the back, being able to land the whip shots would, either deter them because, number one, they're out of position, or number two, their health might drop a little, they might not want to push up. So doing this buys a lot of time for your team as well. So that's that. Shielding teammates and yourself, this is actually very, very fundamental, I would say, as Brig. Most of the time we do not want to be blindly swinging your mace. If for example, let's say the enemy team has a Widow, the enemy team has a hit scan, or they have Ana who knows how to nade and stuff like that. Knowing who to shield, when to shield, and how to shield is really, really important. And then lastly, keeping your team alive, via repair pack or rally, knowing when to use the ultimate, knowing who to repair pack on, saving, let's say for example, if the enemy team has an ultimate coming up, save a few repair packs, for certain heroes on your team. Let's say they know they're going to dive their Kree, or they're going to dive your Ana or your Zen in the back. Knowing and keeping your cooldowns properly will be able to, keep your team, healthy in a lot of these scenarios. So like looking at all the support actions you can see over here listed, the stun, the whip, the shield, and the healing, all these, of course come with cooldowns, right? So knowing when to use these cooldowns and knowing who to use them on is really, really important as a support player, which on top says, right place, right time. For example, if the enemy team has a Nano Winston, or they have a Genji Blade coming in, they have no Nano and stuff like that. That if the Winston jumps in, you're not going to stun him. Alright, you're gonna save that stun. Okay, you're gonna save the stun for maybe the Genji when he's dashing in, stuff like that. Instead, you want to use other cooldowns, to deter the enemy team from pushing. So let's say if their Winston's jumping in, you know if they have blade, you don't use stun, use your whip shot. So you whip the enemy threats away from your team, but you still have the stun for the crucial enemies, you see. So like knowing when to use certain abilities on the right people or not only save your team a lot of trouble, but also will save you a lot of trouble, because then you wouldn't be caught out, in really bad scenarios whereby you have nothing to defend yourself and whatnot. Okay, and sometimes you might hear a common thing from Brick players, I have no more armor pack, stuff like that. It happens. These are also things that you should say as a support player as well when you don't have certain cooldowns, so your team would know how to approach the fight, coming fight. Let's say you have no armor pack, the DPS will not push up, stuff like that. So yeah, basically right place, right time, right ability, and the right target. Now more on the hero parts, the hero part of this, this whole thing. What are main support heroes? Alright, in different compositions. So when you are playing, like for example, rush compositions, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard, Ryan, Diva, Mei being the really common rush when people want to win games really quickly. Lucio would be in the rush composition because number one, Lucio has a really, really insane skill, which is his speed boost. Alright, no one in the game has it other than sprint, on soldier and whatnot. But Lucio's ability to AoE heal everyone around him, speed boost, and a crazy ultimate with a really good displacement skill as well, which is his boop. Being able to push certain people away from some of your teammates doing a rush comp is really, really important. So usually people would play Lucio in rush comps. Also because Lucio is almost never in the game. Never in the fight. It's never in the heat, so you're able to scout, let's say for example if the McCree is flanking or whoever's flanking, whatnot, you're able to see everything, and you also be able to beat at the right timing because you can see your teammates' health, you can see the enemy team and whatnot. You'll be able to predict what's coming up next. So for dive composition, usually the main supports played would be, Lucio, Mercy, and Break. Alright. Lucio mentioned before, Lucio has a really insane speed boost, so if you're playing dive compositions that requires your whole team to move together, like Lucio, Moira, and stuff like that, Lucio is the main support. Alright. When it comes down to comps where you have a Pharah playing your dive comps, Mercy will be the one to provide the pocketing for Pharah. I think that's self-explanatory. Pharah pocket, Pharmacy, it's classic. And then you also have the Brick. In recent metas, Brick in dive comps has been really, really popular. Some of you might have heard of the Double Bubble being played in Overwatch League, in Contenders. Some of you might have seen the Brick Zen comp, the low healing kind of comp. Yeah, Break is basically some of these team comps, some of these heroes in, dive compositions, depending on who your team plays, of course, might not work on every dive comp, but these three main supports are usually the main supports that you go to. Okay, so for your pure comp, this is a more complicated team composition, I would say. You probably never see this in lower elos, but a pure composition is basically whereby your whole team comp is basically playing around certain heroes, enabling them to pop off. So one common one in the past few metas would be Ashe, Mercy, Zen. So in such scenarios like that, Mercy would be the main support in the team comp, and then you're coming on down to Brick, Zen. In the more recent, pure comps you see in Korea metas and whatnot. So Brick in the pure composition, like I said, Brick is a really good support. She has a stun, she has a whip. You're basically there to protect certain players from your team, or in this case, let's say your other support is a Zenyatta, you're supposed to be protecting your Zen. Okay. So when it comes down to two shield comps, okay, Orisa Sigma. Okay, this is where it gets a bit complicated because, like I said, main supports aren't just the supports that don't require aim. Like you see Lucio, you see Mercy, Break. All these people, they don't need aim. But after that, you see a Baptiste over here. And you're like, okay, that's weird. So two shield compositions is where it gets a bit confusing for some people. Baptiste is actually a main support in two shield comps. if the partnering support is a Zenyatta most of the case. Alright, so because basically Baptiste will be the one, helping the Zenyatta. For example, if the Zenyatta is getting pressured, if your Orisa Sigma are getting low, you'll be there to lamp. You provide a lot of the healing for your team. Ultimate enables your team to push, enables your team to defend, hold angles and stuff like that. So that's where Baptiste comes in. Also, he has a really good mobility skill, which is the jump, saves you a lot of trouble sometimes. And then you have Brig in 2 shield comps, when the accompanying support is the Baptiste. Now Baptiste is the main support for the Zenyatta comp, but in the 2 shield Baptiste comp with Brig is usually the main healer, I would say, because Brig, you'll be the ones busy keeping some of your teammates alive, peeling for them. Your healing output is crazy insane as well. Your rally, your whip shot, deterring flankers, protecting your Baptiste. That's where Brig comes in into 2 shield comps with that's where Brig comes in. Correct. So it's a little bit of a gray area when it comes down to 2 shields, but basically, like I mentioned just now, main support, you're supposed to be there helping your team, protecting some certain teammates in certain fights. So Brig is there in a 2 shield comp. So yeah, it can get quite confusing when it comes down to this, but as long as you know that as a main support, you're supposed to be protecting your teammates, helping your teammates. That's the most important thing when it comes down to this kind of comps. Misconceptions and common mistakes of main supports. Alright, like I mentioned just now, main support do not require aim. You guys don't need to aim. You guys just press E, press Q, haha, I heal team, That is not all false, but that is also not all true, because when it comes down to main support, if you can aim, you're gonna be disgusting. Some of the best 2 shield players in the world, their aim is crazy. Okay, when they're coming down to, like, the last thing you expect is a main support player, Lucio, having crazy aim. Alright, so that just increases your team's chances of winning, because you have another DPS, whatnot. Okay, and the second misconception is that since you're the main support, you have the main heals, which means you heal the most. That's false. Main supports do not heal the most in most scenarios. In fact, it's the flag support that usually heals the most. But also it depends on the team comp, and also healing, whoever heals more or less doesn't really matter. But the stereotype whereby main supports heal the most, that's false. Completely false. Alright. So common mistakes about main support is that, number one, when you're like, some players, they'll focus on the wrong enemy target. Like I mentioned just now, if for example the opponent team has certain skills, certain ultimates coming in, using your wrong cooldowns, will just bring your team to an L. If you don't have stun for this, the whip shot for that, you're dead. And also, for example, let's say you're on Lucio, and then you use your speed boost on the wrong enemies. Let's say you're gonna try and kill a Lucio and stuff like that. For example, you're gonna be wasting a lot of time, wasting your team's efforts, wasting cooldowns. Alright, which brings me to the second point: using abilities and ultimates carelessly. Okay, this is really, 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 really important for a main support, or supports in general. Alright, like not using your ultimates. Using your ultimates without thinking. For example, let's say you nano when you're going in a winning fight, you beat when your team already killed 3, using your stun on, let's say for example, maybe a Lucio when the Winston is going to be nanoing in and stuff like that. So using all these things carelessly, using your cooldowns carelessly as a support will be very detrimental to your team, because then you lose the only things that protecting you as a support. You're squishy and stuff like that. So your abilities, if they're not there, you're pretty much dead. Alright? Holding abilities on ultimates instead of using them. This is very, very, very important. Alright? Because, okay, I mentioned the second point. Using the ultimates and abilities carelessly is one mistake. Not using your abilities and ultimates is also really, really, really bad. Because for example, let's say if the enemy team uses beat and they use shatter, for example, and you don't beat when you have, a Lucio out, just because they might have a Nano Genji next fight. Okay, a lot of support players have this thinking whereby they have to save certain ultimates for certain heroes. So let's say if the opponent team is running Ryan, Zarya, Genji, Ana, alright, and your team is running a Lucio. A lot of times, the Lucio will be like, alright, I'm gonna save beat for Blade. If they're gonna grab, if they're gonna shatter, I'm not gonna use it. Okay, some of the players have the mentality, if we die now, I have beat for next fight. You see? But that's not the case for a lot of scenarios. Oftentimes, if you were to hold your ultimates for the next fight, you tend to lose the game. So, for example, let's say if the enemy team uses a Reinhardt and he shatters 4 of your teammates or 3 of your teammates, and you know they have Blade coming up, alright, you beat. Because the chances of you guys winning and trading with that beat, okay, is definitely higher than if your team wipes out and you go in with beat the next fight. Because if you think about it, let's say using this same scenario, alright, if your teammates get down by shatter and you beat, your whole team gets out, correct? Which means you guys are not dead. Which means they have to use the Genji Nano and going on you guys. So even if you guys do wipe, for example, you have made them use the ultimates, you see, and then you probably drag on, the more of the timer and stuff like that. Anything can happen. Maybe you get kill 1, you kill 2, you go in the fight with more advantage, timer respawn and stuff like that, rather than you guys all wiping on the floor and then going in the next fight with beat to engage, and they use Nanoblade and kill all of you guys, you see. So they'll be winning the fight with their timer, for example, but you guys will be, losing if you guys were to save ultimates, rather than, stalling more time, gaining advantage with the ultimates, even though you guys get wiped afterwards. Okay, so it's a lot of, like I said, you have to know what the enemy team has, what you're going to be planning to do, the cooldowns and stuff like that. Don't be afraid to use ultimates, even though you're saving, for certain stuff. Alright, so this is very important. This is very, very important. Holding abilities and ultimates. Never do that. Of course, don't use it brainlessly. Use it with reason. Okay, and the last point, which I see a lot of support players doing, main support players doing, including myself for a very good period of time, is that you're always trying to do more. Alright, this usually happens when you're like tilting and whatnot. You always try to do more. Alright, I need to kill this person. I need to DPS more. I need to get my Inspire up more. I need to Reddit Lucio into the backline because my team's not doing anything. My DPS is committing in a really bad position. Even though I might die, I'm just gonna go pocket him. Yes, it's gonna lose you the game. Okay, doing more than you're supposed to on support without knowing your limitations is just gonna make you lose the game. Because if you try to do more, alright, let's say if you're trying to Reddit Lucio, or you're trying to aka me machine flank as Brig, or you want to do stupid stuff, alright, as support, trying to do more than what you're supposed to do as a support, you're gonna end up throwing the game. Okay, so like I went through a period of time where I was still adapting to higher levels of gameplay. So I was always trying to do more as a support player, as a Brig, trying to DPS more, up my Inspire more, stun more people. Mercy, I was trying to pocket my DPS as much as I can. But it came to a point where I realized that I don't have to do more than what I'm supposed to do. As a support, oftentimes you just have to do your job. That's it. Doing more, might not guarantee you better results. Because oftentimes doing more would make you tend to overextend, and then overextending means death. So yeah, so I actually learned this through the hard way, and also the other coach that was supposed to be here today, Blue Eyes, he was the one that told me. He was like, if you see someone, okay, this do not take this for a real quote. This is just we were just chilling and stuff like that. But one thing that Blue Eyes mentioned was that if you see your teammate about to die in a really, really bad position, let him die. As long as you're not dead, it's not your fault. Of course, you have to bring it into context, alright? So every time your teammates die, doesn't mean that, oh, they're supposed to be dead. Okay, it's their fault. It's not because I don't heal them. You know, it happens in different scenarios. But one thing is that never ever put yourself in a risk of dying just for someone making a mistake. Never ever do that. Once you stop doing that and focus more on doing your job, keeping yourself alive, keeping your team alive, the right people alive, you know, you tend to you see yourself improving, stuff like that. So basically, red team, blue team, we can see the team composition. If you can't see the team composition, we have a Winston Ana and a Tracer, which is like behind my screen, and you have a ball as well. Opponent team's running a Hog, Sigma, Brig, Ana, Soldier, and Tracer. So, alright, this is so warped. Okay, so basically in this scenario, the main support would be Brig. Why? Ana is, okay, we're gonna talk about this later. Ana is the flex support here. As Brig, you're supposed to be providing assistance to your team. So the people that you'll be providing the most assistance to in these scenarios would be, would be your Tracer, you know, and would be your Ana as well. Because these are the few peoples that would be, you know, engaging. No, I won't say engaging. Sorry, they'll be in need of your help the most. Because okay, other than in this specific scenario, Doomfist as well, because they are running a Hog, they're running a Brig and Ana as well. So you're supposed to be providing most assistance to 3 people on your team, usually the DPS and your other support. So in this scenario, the soldier is on high ground, and oftentimes, you know, supports will just like try to face on or whatnot. But as a support, first things first, stay alive. Alright, so like for Brig, you have to proc and inspire to heal your team. Correct? But you know, you can't heal your team if you're dead. So the first things first here is to stay alive. And my team called out, you know, they're running whatever comps and stuff. So as a Brig, you know, just take space. So in this angle, you'll be able to reach out to all your teammates. Okay, positioning is key. You're not under direct threat of the enemy team. You know, you're in range of all your teammates. I'm just gonna go through like 1.5 fights, so it'll be really quick. And then we can take a short break, and then we'll move on to flex support. So over here, okay, we know the soldiers on the right side. I tied up. I make sure my teammates are alive. And then I see this scenario. The Brig dropped, the Sigma dropped, the Hog dropped. Alright, a lot of times Brig players, they don't push. They're always at the back and stuff like that. But in these scenarios, you know, don't be afraid to push out, especially when you know that you won't be in much threat of the other DPS because your teammates are kind of there. You're always not the only option they will go for. So you push. Miss the whip shot. Okay, you stun. Okay, hold on. Let me put it to 0.75. This replay is taking really long, surprisingly. Okay, so you stun the enemy team from, you know, pushing back. Take the Brig out. 2 kills. Always remember to, you know, like as a main support player, remember your most important thing is that you have to stay alive. So a lot of support players, what they do is that they tend to overcommit. They go in like full force and then they get picked off in the middle of the fight. So always remember, like for example, if you're fighting halfway, make sure to always make sure that you're in healthy condition. Your other support is in healthy condition when you're engaging. So that's very important. That's why you see sometimes I'll turn back to my Ana and stuff like that to make sure that she isn't, you know, being contested. Because if she doesn't die, I don't die. So no cooldowns. Like if you see here, the Ana used to sleep on the Winston. Instantly, once you use the cooldown on the support, you're pretty much free kill. Often, that's why you see a lot of people saying when they have no sleep dart, no stun, no nade, whatever, push. So this is end fight. We killed 4, I think. So Hawk here is a free easy kill. So just high ground. There's nothing much to talk about. Okay, the next fight we'll talk about, you know, being, I would say, in a safer position. Okay, I won't say safer, but knowing when to push in and knowing when not to push in is really important as a main support. I mean, juggling your cooldowns and stuff like that, it's also really important. So I know the Tracer's behind here, so I scout. Very important, scouting. You know, because with your shield positioning, you're able to be like Ryan, basically. Able to see, like, you know, who's coming down the alleyway without exposing yourself. Really important. So my Winston is there, contesting. But he has Primal, so I don't have to provide him as much assistance, you know. So he goes in. So this is a clear sign. This is a clear sign because I know that they have used nade. So, you know, called out. Ana has no nade. Hog has no hook. For example, hitting the whip shot to displace the Hog. Instantly, the soldier is looking at me, at main. So I shield up, staying alive. Stun the Hog to deter. And then you can see here that, like, a lot of times Briggs would just like hold up shield for no reason sometimes. You know, it's basically to get a better POV of the entire fight, stuff like that. So I know the Tracer is behind on our Ana. I instantly turn around. I forgo whatever's happening at the front because my Ana's survivability is, you know, way more important, and also because we want to fight. So there is no direct threat of, you know, my team dying over there. So I turn around. I pack the Doomfist, who is trying to contest the Tracer, and we win the fight. All right, and then I'll go through the next fight real quickly, and then because this will be the rally fight. You know, a lot of people, they'll be like, alright, I'm gonna rally, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna swing, and then they usually die halfway in the rally, which is not supposed to happen because, you know, you're supposed to stay alive. So a lot of times, Briggs, all you have to do is just rally up, and you provide so much assistance to your team rather than swinging and whatnot. Okay, so that's very important because you can proc Inspire via a lot of other ways, whip shot, stuff like that. You don't always have to be constantly swinging to constantly heal. That's a misconception. So over here, shielding to make sure, you know, because they have a soldier and whatnot, I don't know what to be slapped. I want to scout whatever's coming in front. And then I call out to the team that we're going to push it here after the Zarya bubble goes down, which I think it has. So, see, like, I don't go in straight away. Alright. I don't go in straight away. Hold on. I need to... Alright. Alright. Back at it. So I don't go in straight away. You see, once I rally, my shield drops to half. I back out. You know, I let my team go in first before I push it. This way, I'll be less of a threat oftentimes because, you know, my tanks are in the front. You see, they're getting cooldown, they're getting CC and whatnot. I wouldn't be the first priority. My main tank would be oftentimes. So I'm free to do whatever I want here. The Hawk hooks my Winston, I stun him off the last shot. And instantly, over here, like a lot of Briggs, they would complain why the team doesn't push with me, or I died because you guys don't commit. But in this point of time, the Ana nano their Hawk, so instinctively, you know, just back up. Back up, get in the safe position. You know, you don't push. So knowing where to be, like I mentioned just now, knowing where to position and whatnot is really, really important. Knowing what to use and stuff like that. So see, using the stun on the right time, on the right targets, the Hawk was able to ult. And I think we still lost this fight if I'm not wrong. But you see, displacing the Ana makes the Ana fall back, and then, you know, the team is safe from here. But ultimately, we lose this fight because they went on the flank and we are a few supports down, and boom, we're dead. So this is a really short example. It's not really that much flashy stuff coming out from support bot, but it's oftentimes knowing when to push, how to push, you know, saving subtle cooldowns for certain heroes when you know they have it coming up, know when to back, stay alive. All these things are really important when it comes down to playing main support. So yeah, decision making, I would say, to sum it all up, decision making as a main support is really important. You have to know what you're gonna do, how you're gonna do it, and what you're gonna use to do it, you know, because all of that would change, you know, the course of the fight. It might even change games if you use the wrong cooldowns on the wrong people. I'll always emphasize that. It's really important. So yeah, that's all for the VOD part. It's just a really short fight. I wouldn't want to go on in the in-depth analysis because you guys would be bored to death. But yeah, all right. Moving on. Understanding flex support. So what's flex support? Okay, flex support is usually the secondary healer. Okay, and it's usually more focused on utility-based abilities. You know, usually as a flex support player, your kit, your abilities, your ultimates, usually complements the main support. You guys will go hand in hand, and stuff like that. For example, let's say Brigana, Brigzen, whatnot, which I'll talk about later on. My nose is itching. Okay, and also one thing about a flex support, it's very different from other roles or the other support, is that your abilities and ultimates impact the match greatly. Like your kits would impact the game, impact the flow. You pretty much have the deciding factor on who wins most of the time. Okay, and then also it carries really important utility kits, not exactly the healing factor. Unlike Mercy, Lucio, healing isn't really the most important thing that you bring to the table. So I'll talk about this later. So as a result, you're able to enable ultimate exchanges between your team and the enemy team, which I'll also talk about later. And also your kit allows for follow-ups, in fights that will, potential team wipe, or potential, saving someone from a really bad position and whatnot. So I'll talk about that later as well. I'm just gonna do a really quick touch and go with the main support, complementing the main support role. So basically, flex supports have utilities that, like I mentioned just now, synergizes with the main support to ensure that your team has the conditions, has the setups, have the right, in the right condition to win the fight, to win the game. Okay, so simple examples, of how the main support will complement the flex support. You have examples like Brig and Ana. You have examples like Mercy and Zen. All right. So I'm pretty sure you guys have heard a lot about Brig and Ana in the double bubble team comps, usually done in dive as well. So Ana has a really long healing range, which Brig does not have because Brig is a really close AoE. And oftentimes that Brig and Ana, you basically can't kill this duo because in a lot of scenarios, all the Ana has to do is to throw a nade on the Brig, and the Brig swings, no one dies. Alright, so this is where they complement each other, where they have really high survivability, they have really long range, and also they have really good offensive ultimates as well. For example, the Nano, and then you follow up with a rally. The enemy team would be lost forwards, not lost forwards, but lost for action. So that's one example of how complementing each other works. Mercy Zen also, for example, which is usually done in the poke comps. Like Ashe, like I mentioned before, the Ashe Mercy Zen, or Ashe Mercy Brig. No, Ashe Mercy Brig. We were talking about Ashe Zen Brig in one of the poke peel comps. So Mercy Zen, this duo, people will be like, oh, they have not much healing and stuff like that. But that's not the whole point, okay? Because they're supposed to be playing a different team comp style and whatnot. So selecting our healers, of course, is important. But for Mercy Zen has a lot more damage potential, or in fact one of the most damage potentials among all the supports in the game. Alright, which compared to Mercy has almost no damage potential other than a damage boost. So Zen and Mercy go really well together because oftentimes team comps with Mercy would have a slight lack of damage. Okay, because in Overwatch it's either speed, damage, and whatnot to win the fight. Mercy Zen is good because with the Discord op from Zen, and Mercy being a pocket hero, you're able to pocket the other DPS player. So all the DPS player has to do is hit Discords. That's it. To simply put, hit Discords. And if they dive your Zen, the Mercy can pocket the Zen from, dying maybe to one person or two person, depending on how good they are, of course. So yeah, that's a really, really simple rundown, I guess, of what's to expect, I guess, from a complementing role. So there are other examples, Lucio Moira, where Lucio peels for Moira in the the dive comp, Lucio Baptiste, but you get what I mean. So like the main support and the flex support, oftentimes they'll have to complement each other, and oftentimes complementing includes keeping each other alive, which is healing your other support, which not a lot of support players do. A lot of support players, they don't bother to turn around and look at your other healer and stuff like that, and then when they die, they complain that, oh, I'm not getting healed by my other support. Where are you? Oh, you're dead. Why are you dead? Stuff like that. So you're supposed to be complementing each other, supposed to be helping each other, supporting each other. Alright. So playing at the flex support, like I mentioned, same thing as the main support, right place, time, abilities, and targets. And also importantly, you have to follow up your main support a lot, because both of you sticking together would be really, really, really important. So one example we have here is Ana. Alright, so her abilities consist of the Sleep Dart, Biotic Nade, and Nano Boost. So Biotic Nade being, like if you hit your teammates, they'll get increased healing, get a slight boost, slight burst of heal at that moment, and if you hit the enemy team gets, anti-heal. Sleep Dart, self-explanatory, Nano Boost, self-explanatory. So what do you do as a flex support? Let's say Ana, you're supposed to sleep crucial enemies with Sleep Darts. For example, let's say a Winston Primal, a Tracer, Genji. These are some of the more common Sleep Dart targets that a lot of people look out for. Little flankers with Sleep Dart. This is very touchy, I would say, because once you use your Sleep Dart and it does not hit the flanker, you're dead. So oftentimes you do not do that, but that's one of the uses as well. For example, a flanking Tracer, if you sleep the Tracer, she's dead. That's it, they can't push. Okay. Denying healing to the enemy team with Biotic Grenade. So this is also very situational, but if you're able to land a really, really good nade on the enemy backline or even the tanks when they don't have cooldowns, you technically stop one entire push by yourself with one cooldown. So that's how strong the flex support is. So like I mentioned just now, flex support, your utility to the team is pretty much the highest as a support. So there are like a lot of these factors where you can bring in to the fights, anti-nades, sleeps, CCs and stuff like that. For Zen, for example, you have Discord and whatnot. These are the high impactful factors that you bring to a team fight. So you're pretty much really important. So surviving is very important as well. That's why you have to always play up with your main support. Instant heal from the nade, damage boost, and damage reduction via Nano. So Nano is one of the strongest support ultimates in the game as well, where Nano Blade, Nano Winston, Nano anybody, and Nano can even be used as a defensive ultimate. You see, for example, let's say they use a Nano Blade and they dash towards your break, for example, and you Nano your break, she doesn't die. It's really strong. So knowing who to use it on, when to use it, is really, really important. So that's why it also mentions there, right place, right time, right abilities. Nanoing someone just because you win a fight and you nano someone doesn't mean that it's a good usage. Sometimes you might not need to use it and stuff like that. So yeah, flex supports. We talked about main supports just now in the various team compositions. So now we'll talk about the flex supports. So for rush comps, usually the flex supports will be running Baptiste and Moira depending on what you play. So in these scenarios, if you do notice that Baptiste and Moira are really, really, really good healers. Alright. Which means, like just now I mentioned before, main supports are not always the ones that will do the most healing. In these scenarios, flex supports will be doing the most because Baptiste, Moira, good AoE heal, lots of output, ultimates that are crazy, especially for Moira and stuff like that. So rush compositions usually rely a lot of the healers that bring a lot of healing in one shot. They bring a lot of a lot of healing, a lot of mobility compared to the other heroes. And also really important, Baptiste Lamp is really important for rush as well because immortality, broken skill. So yeah, that's usually the rush composition. If your team is playing a dive composition, depending on what they run or what heroes they run, it can be an Ana or a Moira as well. So like Ana usually for those compositions where it's like I won't say half-assed, but like Winston, McCree, Tracer that is not fully dive. Usually you play Ana so that you can stay in the backline with your McCree and whatnot. If you're playing those comps where you see often like Tracer, Genji, and your other team is playing Lucio, or you're playing Reaper and stuff like that with a rush or dive, Moira usually will be the one that's really impactful because you're always close to your team, providing heal to your teammates who need to be in close range of the enemy team. So that's very important as well. So Ana, Moira usually play in dive comps. Poke compositions, like I mentioned before just now, the Zen Ashe kind of compositions. You can have Ana, which brings about the nano survivability and stuff like that, self-survivability. And then you have Zen, Discord Orb. Even though it's squishier, but if you're able to play Zen in a poke composition, your Discord brings a lot to the table. If you're discarding a tank or discarding the enemy DPS, it pressures them so much. So that's where the utility, when I talk about the utility being really, really impactful to the game, comes about. And then the two shield compositions, like I mentioned just now, as the main support. If you're playing the Brig Bap 2 shield, the Baptiste will be the flex support because you'll be doing pretty much most of the healing and stuff like that. You have DPS as well. And then if you're playing the Baptiste Zen comp, Zenyatta will be the flex support because of your Discord Orb. Because you'll be able to break shields faster, you're able to pressure flankers more with your Discord, so it becomes really, really effective. So it's very important that in almost no scenario you should ever run the same, I would say, categories of supports. So flex supports, if you have two flex supports in one team, it's gonna make things really, really hard because your supports oftentimes do not complement each other. Alright, so other than Baptiste and Zenyatta at the bottom, right? That's a different story. But yeah, so being able to complement your main support is really important. So like you wouldn't see people playing like for example let's say dive comp, for example. If your team is running a Moira, okay, Mercy is also a very viable hero in dive comp. You wouldn't see Moira and Mercy, even though they are flex support main supports. Okay, that's a great area to talk about. But oftentimes you don't, like for example, one really good example is that Ana Zen. You oftentimes wouldn't run Ana Zen if you want to win a game, because once your backline gets dived, your whole team doesn't get healing. Okay, but that's that's more of the complicated side. It's more about team comps and stuff like that. But yeah, complementing your other main support is very important, which means that you picking your flex support heroes in lane comps is really important as well, because that also pretty much decides your winning factor in a lot of fights. Maybe nano boost, being trans to save your butts from really like a grab or a sigma ult and stuff like that. It's really important. Misconceptions about flex supports and common mistakes. Alright, flex supports must deal as much damage. If you're playing Ana, you're playing Zen, you're playing Baptiste, you're playing Moira, a lot of people will be like, alright, I need to do damage, I need to shoot people, I'm running out of juice, I need to DPS and stuff like that, pressure more. No, the main objective is to heal as a support. Always, number one objective is to heal. If you can't heal properly, don't bother doing DPS. That's very important. Because I've seen some players, what they are doing is like, they will decide to just DPS like crazy, and then when the other support dies, they'll be like, alright, you didn't survive on your own. Stuff like that. So healing comes first. Healing always comes first. If you can't maximize your healing damage synergy, don't do it. Just do heals. Another misconception is, if I die as a flex support, it's my team's fault. They didn't keep me alive. Boohoo, bad team. Wrong. A lot of times, if you die as a flex support, you're at fault because you're in a really bad position. Like I mentioned just now, as a support player, you have to be in good positioning. If you die first in fights, can only mean two things. One, you're in such a bad position where you're easily seen and easily killed by a sniper, for example. Or number two, you're in such a bad position for the enemy team to jump on you and push you without much trouble. Alright, because flex support brings so much utility to the board. You have anti-nade, you have Discord. Oftentimes you'll be really hard to reach, but if you're easily reachable, then too bad, that's your fault. So that's one of the misconceptions as well. Common mistakes, using your abilities and ultimates carelessly, randomly nanoing people when they don't need nano. I wouldn't say trance. Panic trancing, also a very important thing. using Moira ult when you don't have to ult because you already want to fight, stuff like that. Similar to main support, not much difference. Holding abilities as well, not using nano on certain targets. You know, let's say for example your Winston's about to get primal, he's stalling point, you don't nano. That's a wasted opportunity. That's a wasted potential. You know, if you don't use trends, when an opponent team, let's say they're running, if you bring a C team rank team comp into this scenario, Sigma Zarya. A lot of times people play Sigma Zarya and C. They'll be like, they play Zen and they'll be like, oh, I need to save trends for the graph. I'm not gonna ult anything. I'm not gonna ult if they don't graph. And then the Sigma ults your whole team, and you decide to hold it. Your whole team dies, and then you lose the fight. You see, in these kind of scenarios, use your ults. Know when to use it. Like for support in general, experience comes along with the role. So you have to know what to do. Not oftentimes, a lot of times supports can't be played by by paper. Like, oh, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to save that and whatnot. It won't work. It won't work. So yeah, do not hold abilities, but do not randomly use abilities. Mispositioning, very very important. Mispositioning. All right, guys. As a flex support, your positioning will cost you your game a lot of times, because a lot of times as a flex support you have 0 to no mobility, and also you're really squishy. So if you misposition, you get into the bad angle of a certain player and you die, you technically lose the game. So mispositioning, like a lot of these things, you have to be practicing, watching people and stuff like that, know where they stand, so it will be safe for you to heal your team, and also at the same time not under the enemy team's line of sight. And also the last point, mistakes, is focusing too much on DPS. Calling out to all the DPS Anas, the DPS Baptistes, the DPS Moiras. Alright, please just heal your team. If you want to win a game, heal your team. Unless it's not needed at that point of time, of course, go ahead, DPS. More DPS coming from the supports will generally help your team a lot more. But when you're supposed to heal, please heal. It's very important. And of course, synergize with your main support. If the Lucio has beat, you don't lamp. If the Lucio has no beat, then you lamp. Stuff like that. Very, 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 very important. Okay, in this scenario, I'm playing the Ana, which is the flex support. Alright, in this team composition, you can see that I'm playing. Our team is playing McCree, D.Va, Winston, Ana, Genji, Brig, which means that I usually should be only nanoing our Winston or our Genji. Our Brig is supposed to be protecting me. Alright. So the opponent team is running, you can't see this right now, but our opponent team is running a Genji, Ana, Widow, Baptiste, Zarya, and Rein. So they're kind of playing like a rush, but of course we wouldn't know what's going on before this. So if you do notice that my positioning here is already number 1. Okay, not number 1, but like first off, I'm out of line of sight. So yeah, first off, I am out of LOS from the Widow in every single possible angle. Of course, other than this angle, which is very rare, or if the Widow decides to peek here, of course, which is very rare as well. But other than that, I'm completely out of LOS from the enemy team. So this often will be the starting position for most Anas. Game Shija. Alright, so I know they have a Widow. So I don't push up. I don't push up like my McCree. My McCree likes to live dangerously. So I don't know push up. Okay. Why did I nade there? Alright. A lot, like just now we mentioned in the slides, don't randomly use your cooldowns, don't randomly use abilities, if not you'll be helpless. That is true. But I also mentioned that flex support, a lot of times your kit, your utility will help your teammates a lot in terms of, like setting up for kills and whatnot. This position, I am in no threat of anyone from their team because I see that they're playing a Rein, Zarya, Ana, which means they have no mobility. I see the BAP as well, they have no mobility. The only threat I have is the Widow because Genji wouldn't even reach me without going through the brick. So it's safe for me to nade at that spot. And hit someone. So over here, instantly the right can push up more. You see? So the Widow is there, She can't hit me. I'm in a safe angle. Second thing, why did I throw the sleep dart? It's also because I know that the enemy team is rotating from here to here. I am in no direct threat at any point of time to anyone. So my cooldowns are pretty much, hey, I'm just going to throw free and see whether I can luckily hit someone. So over here, my break heals me. See again, I am in no direct threat. And if you do realize, my positioning is always at the back. And there's no point in time I actually ever walked up to this bridge over here. Because walking to this bridge basically means, hey, Widow, look at me. I'm free kill, you know? So, over here, I set up a nade as well. Because I know the D.Va is still there, which means that she won't be able to hit nade. It missed. Alright, so over here, I have 8 seconds to my next nade. But I am still not in direct threat of anybody on the opponent team. Alright, so if you look here, Fire strikes out, our Brig is close. I try to keep my Brig alive. Our McCree kills the Widow. At this point of time, I know it's fairly safe to walk up. So I walk up onto the bridge because I know the Widow's dead. I try to land a nade again, and this time, because the Widow's dead, it's a 5v6. I'm not in direct threat as well. So I use my nade as well. I walk up. Winston almost dies. Did not die. And at this point of time, I know the Widow's back. So I move back. Okay, not yet. But I move back to the spot where I originally started. And I'm here on this bridge again. The back part. Because I see the Widow shots coming from left, I know I am safe on this bridge. Alright. At this point, okay, this is where positioning comes into handy. Alright. So you see that okay, they pretty much have nothing at this point. But still, I have nano, which means I can, number one, I cannot die with nano. It's very important. So I do not know what's happening there. The Widow hooks up, the team calls it. I rotate out. The team jumps the Widow, did not die. I know the Widow is not in any threat of me right now, so I try to throw a sleep dart to stop them from pushing. I get hit a few times by the Genji. I back up instantly back down to the stairs. And since the Widow is being camped on high ground, which means I know that the Widow would not be in any threat of me right now. The Widow is playing from the angle that could only hit me here, so I actually get shot once, I think. Yep, there you go. So Widow can only hit me from that door. So after once she rotates out from it, I am perfectly safe. So over here, if you notice, a lot of times Anas would play around here, they want to land nade, some Anas will play here and stuff like that. But oftentimes you do not have to put yourself in such dangerous situations or positions unless you're setting up and your team knows what to do. In this case, I don't know anyone from the team, they don't know me, I don't know them, so I always tend to play safe. So I'll play at the back. Okay, so in this scenario, one person dies, the McCree. Alright, so this is where I talk about your ultimates will help change the tide of the fight. And your the flexible ultimates are usually the key changing factor in any team fight. So over here, I nano the Winston immediately. Once one of our people died, I instantly nano the Winston. And if you look at me, I am still full health. My teammates are gonna die. By what cost? I rotate out because I know if I will stay on this bridge too long, the next target they will look at me after the D.Va is me. So I rotate out back to point, pulling my distance away from the team fight. The Ryan almost dies, and saving the sleep dart for the Genji. And then tada. That's how you win a fight. So a lot of times, not trying to do more than what you're supposed to do. For example, if let's say I wanted to be cheeky and I wanted to stand here, for example, I wanted to nade them, and stuff like that. The Genji might have killed me fast. The Widow, let's say if she was a main, I would have died. The Zarya could have taken me out from here. I might have not have time to nano my Winston. And even if I did nano Winston, without me there's no saying that, they'll win the fight. But as long as I'm always in a safe position, being able to do what I'm supposed to do, use my cooldowns for the right people at the right time, judging like, you know, whether I'm in direct threat or not, that's one very good thing to think about. Am I in a direct threat of the enemy team when I'm using my cooldowns? If no, you may use it. If yes, you hold it. So throughout the entire fight just now, I have not used my sleep dart because I know that I'll need a sleep dart in case I ever needed to sleep someone, you know, that's pushing up, because our McCree already died. So I shouldn't be wasting my cooldowns at this point. So for anybody who's watching this and will be like, alright, support is easy, or like, I want to learn support, I'm bored of the other roles. Okay, what am I supposed to do? Alright. Well, all win. Half of that was on DPS, surprisingly, because I was playing Pharah. But anyways, let's not guess. So the pros and cons of support. What are you going to expect playing support? You know, what are you supposed to look out for going to this role new? What are you going to be expecting? What is playing support like? So we're going to talk about this in the next slide. Okay, so the pros and cons for support. Alright, simplest answer, massive healing support for the team. Duh, obviously you're a support player, you're going to be healing for the team and stuff like that. Okay, the pros is that you'll be able to deter enemy engages while pretty much still being safe most of the time with your kit. Alright, you're able to change pacing of the match. You know, like not only main tanks can do that, supports can also do that with your utility kits. You know, and like I showed just now on the Ana VOD, you can potentially flip the tides of a fight with your kit, with your nade, for example. Like if you're using context for the last game, using nade, you know, using nano and stuff like that, you can potentially flip a fight where, you know, your team would be losing. And for newer players coming in, main support usually has a really they have a, I would say, okay, there's a bit of a typo on the slides. My bad. Main supports have a really low skill floor, not skill ceiling. Main support has a really low skill floor, which means that you can pretty much be new to the game and you still be able to learn supports fairly well. Or mainly the main support heroes like Lucio, Mercy, Brick. They're technically the easier characters to play in the game. So low skill floor, not ceiling, floor. High mobility, which is the fun part about main supports. Lucio speed boost, wall ride, Guardian Angel, you know, I won't consider Brick having high mobility. Baptiste jumps, all these are really fun and engaging, you know, utilities. So if you're looking to have fun in like quick play, for example, these kind of mobilities would be things that other roles would not have as much, you know, like for example DPSs, you know, they won't be able to fly the air other than Pharah, for example, or Echo. So supports are kind of like main supports are kind of like the more fun supports you would see. However, going to the cons, you know, as a support player in ranked, you are usually the main target. You are usually the first person they want to kill, which is really boring at times because, you know, you have 5 people or 4 people jumping at the same time. You can't be helped because you're usually the main target of the enemy, especially when you're the Brick, especially when you're the Zen, you know, all the squishy heroes. You know, usually the main supports wouldn't be the focus target. Usually you'll be the ones that have least mobility. Sadly, Brick as a main support is also really low mobility and stuff, but yeah. So usually be main targeted by the enemy. So if you always do not want to die first, maybe support's not the role for you. Okay, unless you're good at support, then maybe you wouldn't die first. So on and so forth. For supports, positioning is really important. Okay, so any form of mistakes usually would come down to your positioning. So for example, let's say you're playing, let's say you're at lower ranks playing soldier, for example, you can technically sit behind a Ryan and shoot and still win the game. But if you're support and you're in a really bad position where you can't heal your team, or you're in a really vulnerable position that you'll be killed by the enemy team, you just lose. So support is pretty much one of the most positioning orientated roles, I would say. Every role in Overwatch pretty much depends on positioning, but for support, since that your main objective, your main objective is to stay alive and also you're the main focus of the enemy team, positioning is the most important for you. Alright, and I've mentioned just now, you know, when you're playing support, you have to be in the right place, right time, right ability, right people. So when you do not have your cooldowns, you are the most vulnerable when you don't have cooldowns. Because like, okay, you know, as Winston or tanks or DPS, you might not have a cooldown here and there, but you know, you can still survive. More or less, because you know you have the supports helping you. But as a support, if you do not have cooldowns, you're pretty much free kill if your teammates doesn't follow up with peeling for you. So yeah, so you have to know when to use specific cooldowns, know how to position well, okay, because you'll be focused mostly by the enemy target. And then another one of the cons for support is that usually for the flex supports, they have a really high skill ceiling. So if you want to look to be, you know, really good at a certain flex support hero, or to be honest, in a support hero in general, to be able to hit the really, to be the really best, it's really hard, because you know, considering that support has a really fairly low skill floor compared to a lot of the other roles, okay, being the best at this role is also really hard because there's a lot of people good at the role. You know, there's a lot of people who can play this role at a really high level because you know it's a fairly easier role to pick up. So really high skill ceiling, flex supports especially, you know, squishy, always getting focused first. You know, a lot of the abilities are really hard to land, sleep dart and stuff like that onto, you know, really good against really good players where they know how to dodge and whatnot. So it's a really high skill ceiling, and also for usually the flex supports, you have really low mobility. Zen, you're pretty much a sitting duck. Ana, you're pretty much a sitting duck. Moira, without your Wraith, you're pretty much a sitting duck. You know, Baptiste, even though he has good mobility in terms of the vertical sense, but that's it. You know, other than that, he pretty much has no, you know, front and back mobility and stuff like that. So you're always being focused by the enemy. You always have to watch your positioning. You always have to monitor your cooldowns. Your skills are hard to hit at some point, and you have pretty much no form of escape, which makes support really frustrating to play. However, because of that, and also the pros, it's really fun because you can change the pacing of your match depending on whether you survive the cons of the role. So that's that. So it's kind of a, I would say, pain in the ass kind of role, but it's really fun when you kind of get a handle of, you know, what's going on around, if you can survive. I guess the biggest joy from playing support is not dying when you're supposed to. So that's one thing I guess you can look forward to if you want to pick up support at any point of time. So yeah. Okay, first things first. The opponent team is playing an Ashe, Orisa, and Sigma. You're pretty much saying to them at this point, hey guys, shoot me. Okay, you shouldn't be playing up here, honestly. In most scenarios, if they have a really good Ashe, you'll be dead by now. What you should be playing is, I mean, if they're really bad and you're not dead yet, fine. I guess it's okay to play here. But if I were you, I will play here. Alright, or I'll play here. Depending on what your enemy team would do, I mean your teammates would do. If your teammates are going to jump early, then fine. You may be able to, yeah, you might be able to play up here as long as the Ashe doesn't kill you. But it's very when it comes down to playing dive against this comp, is really hard because, you know, they're able to hold angles where you can't. Okay, if you look at the positioning, okay, against better players, you would have died if they used ults. So almost never give up a high ground position. Almost. If you want, you can just jiggle, or you want to drop, you can drop on this. Never be close to your team because it makes you so accessible for the enemy team to do anything they want. So over here, yeah, really okay. If this is a QB game, all right, but if you're in a ranked game, you'll be dead, 100%. See, now you guys are in a panic because you're unable to deal out any form of healing properly because you're constantly getting pressured by the enemy team. So what I would have done if I were you is I'll be on the high ground as much as I can, and if my teammates are on the edge, even better. If I drop, I'll drop far away from the payload. I'll never be in the line of sight of anybody or close or within the range of anyone. Hiding, this is great. Slow. Yeah. Can say that for heroes like Ana, your range has an infinite range forward, so you don't have to go closer looking for you. Yes, that is true. That is true. Nano? Okay, you see here, right? Okay, you slapped the hog a bit late, and then now because of the cooldowns, your bomb is behind. You get what I mean? So like a lot of times where you have to know what cooldowns to use. If you know the hog is like the hook is already out, and it pulls already pulling the McCree forward, and you can't land your sleep down in time, don't bother landing it. And especially if you're gonna wake up the hog almost immediately, don't bother trying. But over here, you see, you're not aware of what's going on because you have a hog here and you have a Zarya there, but you're trying to heal your Wisdom who's in primal, which pretty much does not need any assistance. Over here, you're going out of line of sight of your Zarya again. Somehow your Zarya survives, so that's fine. You're tunneling a lot. You're going up close to nade. If I were you, I would have stayed up here. Why? I'm close to my Baptiste as well. Alright, if you did land the sleep, or in any scenario their DPS looks at you, you're screwed. See? And because of this, your Baptiste dies as well. And you're running into the fight. You're running literally into the fight, and you're tunneling. You're hiding, that's great, but you're tunneling. You're wasting cooldowns. You wasted... Okay, you just did a chain of mistakes right here. First things first. Okay, this chain of mistake was kinda oofy, but we can learn from this. Alright. First things first. You got yourself into heat of battle for no reason, ditching your Baptiste who died up there. Alright? Baptiste might have died, but still, don't try to ditch your other support. Alright? Kree dies, no choice, he was low. Alright, you're low, you backed out, that's great. The Zarya gets hooked, you try to land asleep, which was, did not connect. You try to heal your Winston, which is full, it's perfectly fine. Because the Zarya is anti-naded, you get what I mean? But over here, you prioritize nading the hog instead of nading your Zarya. Alright? But you need to understand that okay, this fight, the Zarya dying because she was still anti is fine. But always, even though you are nading, let's say that your Zarya is naded or whatnot, okay, look at your health. Alright, I would rather you not stand here. Alright, if let's say the Zarya were to survive, let's say, if you naded her there, her healing, her anti-heal, after her anti-heal factors go away, she'll go to, boosted heal. So it'll be easier for you to heal that. And you're putting yourself in a really bad positioning over here. Okay? Like I said, this is quick play. A lot of the players are not sweaty. So this scenario could have gone either way. But if I were you, I would have not done those actions. Because like you see over here, you die. Why? You're in the heat of the battle. Alright. Let's see if I were you, what would I have done. Might have played this slightly different, I feel. If I were you, I would have rotated all the way here and tried to get a high ground. Or I would have rotated here, back here, following the hog. At least. A little. No, actually no, that's stupid. Not following the hall. I would have played back. 100%. I would have hugged the wall like crazy. And when the lamp walked out, I know the Baptiste is on my right. I would have walked to my Baptiste. Instead of walking from the front, I would have walked from the back. And I wouldn't have died here. You know, I would have stayed alive with my Winston and my Baptiste. I could have thrown a nade maybe on my Winston or naded the people here and stuff like that. So might have won the game there, or at least, you know, stood a chance more in winning that. But the Zarya would have died either ways. Okay, but your positioning is that you always have to, number one, always stay safe. Like if you're in this position and you know your Baptiste is there and you need heal, just run from the corner. Run here. So if you're here, for example, loading. My throat is so dry. Okay, over here. Loading. More loading. Okay. If you see here, the Zarya dies, right? Your Winston is the first target they see. If you rotated all the way back here, where your Baptiste was, the first target in their face will still be Winston. But now, no, you're in their face. That's why you die. Okay, let's see, do you have nade? Okay, you have no nade. Fine. But if you have healed the Winston a bit more, here, okay, he would have died either ways. But still, you get what I mean. You died first. So now, let's say if you're in a really salty rank game, people will be like, Ana, why did you die? How would you carry this as Mercy? Okay. Okay, hold on. I don't see the. Let me see from a top-down POV. I think it'll be clearer. So you guys, I assume you guys lost the round. Okay. Okay. You wanna know how you could have won that fight with Mercy? You guys would have won the fight with Mercy if your tanks didn't throw. That's a fact. You guys lost that fight because your tanks threw. There's nothing you can have done there. Oh yeah, one thing about support is that if your teammates die, you pretty much can't win the game. Because your teammate reliant. Easy. Yeah. Mercy is really team dependent, I would say. So if your Zarya and Winston survive there, you guys will have won. So yeah, there's nothing much you could have done, to be honest, on that. I think what you could have done, to be very honest, is that if you were to go on to the break, maybe your chances would be higher. to win that fight. Because Mercy is very team reliant, very team reliant. If you went on the break, maybe things might be better. Might, no guarantees. Sadly put it. That's Mercy for you. That's Mercy for you. You are very team reliant. If you want to play a main healer that is not team reliant and still can pocket people decently well, play Brick. Brick is the better alternative. So whenever I feel like I'm losing the game, I'll just go Brick rather than Mercy. If pocketing my DPS isn't the way to go. Oops. But yeah. Actually, as Brick in 2 bubble, do you prioritize going with Zarya or going with Ana? Actual question. Okay. Ana. My Brick will never engage until the opportunity comes to me. Because if you were to go with your Zarya, you're basically saying, hey, I'm free shot, hit me. And all the Ana has to do is to break the Winston bubble and nade you guys. And that's it. And usually the bubble will be using cleanse on Winston, easy. So you're dead. So a lot of times when you're playing double bubble Winston Ana, you start off with your Ana first. Only when the bubbles go down and you see the nade goes down, you know, and then your Zarya is there like no bubble and stuff, but she's still pushing, right? Then you move up with your Zarya. You don't engage with your Zarya, you move up with your Zarya, you play slightly behind her. You don't ever go and fight with your Zarya, ever. The only time you need to be near your Zarya is when you're probably like taking position into a fight that you guys already planned on going into. So that your Ana already knows how to position. In any other case, always be with your Ana. Did like stop the Winston from jumping in, then you think about what you're gonna do next. You know, if the Zarya cooldowns are down, your Zarya is high energy, whether you're using Nano or Winston as primal, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people don't really know. It's very situational. Like I said, main support is very situational. And then like, yeah, because you never know whether enemy team has, you know, their Ana is playing aggressively or defensively. That's why scouting helps as well. So like if you see the Ana net is already been used on their own team because you can see like, you know, they're boosted in healing and stuff like that, then you're free to push up near your Ana. You're near your Zarya. Push up near your Zarya, not with your Zarya. Well, it depends on what the enemy runs. If they're running more spam with no flankers, then no point going Ana 24/7. No. If your enemy playing rush, playing spam, then you push your Zarya, you're asking, hey guys, kill me. No, in any point, like you should never ever push up with your Zarya against any team comp. Ever. If your opponent team is playing rush, you're gonna die. If your opponent team is playing poke, you're gonna die. If your opponent team is playing mirror, you're gonna die. Pretty much you're gonna die. No, you should still help the Ana, but don't need to go here forever. No, don't go with her forever. I never say you're going with her forever. I say that you have to be near your Ana or near your Zarya. But don't ever like what you said just now. If they're running more spam with no flankers, then no point going with Ana. No, it's not about going with who. It's about your positioning. No. As Brick, the last thing you want to do is to be a liability to your other support where she has to heal you more than the team. You're playing your Zarya against a poke comp, you're asking for free damage onto you. Nope. Feel like if the other team is playing rush, sticking with the Zarya is better though. Situational. That is if your Ana doesn't get called out, and that's if your Ana can land a fat nade and your Zarya knows who to bubble, then yes. In other situations, no. It's like no point going her 24/7. I never no yeah, you don't, like I said, you don't go with Ana 24/7 when the opponent team has used their cooldowns and you determine it's safe. Then you can play nearer to your Zarya. If the enemy team has cooldowns, stay with your Ana. There's no point in you moving forward. Like I said, main machine, your break, oftentimes you're thinking about doing too much. Like you want to push out, if anything like, you know, oh they're playing poke, my Ana doesn't need help, I want to push up. No, do your job, keep your Ana safe. Then when it's time for you to move up, that's it. Any break that moves up with the Zarya when the enemy team has cooldowns is sending an early Christmas present. You're just free kill. But yeah, okay, I'm gonna end stream. We are past 5 minutes of our end time. I was late just now for about 5 minutes, 7 minutes as well. But I'm just gonna end it right here. This has been This feels a weird ending, you know. So this has been like, you know, this is the second class of our Rose 101 session about support. You know, we talked about main support, we talked about flex supports, and you know what do you expect going into these few roles and how to play the role, you know, slightly better with more knowledge. So I realize I've been saying so a lot, so that's one thing I need to fix. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that whatever I taught today was of help to a certain extent. I hope you guys understood the role more, you know, in terms of composition, you know, in terms of what you're supposed to do, and stuff like that. I hope all these things helped you guys, and yeah, I hope you guys took something away from this. You know, I'll always be like if you're in the Discord, I'll always be there. You know, if you guys have questions or whatnot, feel free to drop me questions if you have any. And no, I'll not be doing VOD reviews. You know, and because you know that takes too much time, and you know I do not have much time apart from work and this and my personal time. So if you have any like questions, you know, about this hero, that hero, what should you do, feel free to drop me a DM in the Discord. I'll be free whenever. I'll try to answer whenever. And yeah, we will be having a follow-up Rose 101 session in October for the role DPS. I believe that's the hardest role, one of the hardest roles to learn in Overwatch. And yeah, so that marks the end of our today's lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You know, if you guys would like to support us, you know, there's the right direction. Yeah, we have the Ko-fi link down here below. And yeah, so it's kind of unfortunate that Blue Eyes could not be here today, but I hope that, you know, I was able to, you know, cover as much as you guys needed. And yeah, so yeah, without anything else, yeah, that marks the end of today's lessons. You know, we definitely have more sessions coming up. We have events coming up as well. You know, we have pugs every Saturday. And so if you guys want to join in with our events, keep updated with the events that we have, some of the weekly events that we have, the game days and whatnot, you know, feel free to join on Discord. I believe the link is down below, I believe. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the session, hope you guys learned something, and have a great weekend, and we'll probably see you guys soon. So yeah, thanks for tuning in.